When we were kind of thinking about the TED Talk to run in April, we were chatting with Dawn and Joe and some others, and we kind of were reflecting, I guess, on the fact that things were slowly starting to return to normal, certainly outside the hospital, and how difficult things have been over the last couple of years, and some of the adversity that's happened. So we wanted to create a TED Talk that was hopefully comical, that addressed some of those difficulties around adversity. And we are really grateful and thankful to have Britain's Got Talent finalist Steve Hewlett. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. No worries. So hand over to you, Steve. Do you want to say what you're doing, and over to you?
Thanks very much. Thank you, Paul Goslin. Thanks very much. I thought he was going to do a song, but no song. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I've heard my voice.
Well, thanks so much for inviting me here today to do a talk for you. I'm a comedy ventriloquist, and I hope I can be an hour of escapism for you, and hopefully an inspiration to smile for a while. So I know you got very stressful jobs, and my job got easier 2 years ago as a ventriloquist. So that's what I'm doing. You see, it's up there. Lovely, lovely. Okay, that got a bigger laugh than I thought it was going to. And so you're probably thinking, what is the connection between the medical world and the ventriloquist? There's certainly no comparison. As you individuals, hotel receptionists, carers, nurses, doctors, surgeons, you're dealing with people's lives, you're saving them, and I'm just trying to make them laugh for an hour. Usually that's what I do up and down the country and around the world. I'm in the world of laughter is the best medicine. So that line goes out the window when I walk through your main reception. It's not the best medicine, but it helps. And I found that people thank me for making them laugh. And even if they've not laughed for years. Some haven't laughed since the bereavement, and they come to me thanking me for that. And also their autistic children laugh, and they haven't laughed for years. And it's very nice for me as an entertainer to be able to bring that to people's lives and give them a little bit of joy. And that's what I do over the last, well, I've been professional for 25 years now. And so I've been a ventriloquist for 35 years. And this is when I started. And what I realized when I put this photo on yesterday, I realized that back in the 80s, green jumpers don't go with brown trousers. That's what I realized. And there was also a lot more vinyl back then, wasn't there? So, and roses were in bigger jars. Also, I keep people exercised, because normally when I'm working, people walk out. And so I'm very aware you may have pages and you may need to walk out and go to work. That's fine. And I've had a lot worse. I've done the Comedy Store a few weeks ago, but they stayed because they were locked in. So Ken Dodd would say he exercised the chuckle muscles, and I'm happy with that line because that's what I exercise, is people's chuckle muscles. I was asked to be involved in a project at a hospital in London a couple of years ago for a speech therapist called Zoe, and I visited on a few occasions, and to have a mould of my teeth with electrodes made on them. This is my connection with the hospital, and these electrodes were added, and I was tested speaking normally, relaying a whole list of words, sentences, and letters. And I did the same as a ventriloquist. So I would talk normally, and then I would talk as a ventriloquist to work the technique. So I go, hey, how are you today? Hey, how are you today? And so everything was working behind the teeth, you see, so with the tongue. And I was very excited with this project to be working with the medical world, just using ventriloquism. And it was actually a benefit to patients with cleft palates and stroke speech rehabilitation. So I've had that little connection with the hospital world. And I was very proud of that. And that's going in my book later this year. I'm not selling books today, just sandwiches and water. Today is more about me and my climb up the ladder of success and the adversity, you know, how you get hurdles along the way in show business. And today's more about that, and to fulfill my ambitions as well. Really realizing my dream, seeing me as a ventriloquist. I saw a ventriloquist in 1987 on a TV talent show, and he lived just down the road from me, and I knocked on his door to ask for lessons. And he told me to go away and learn from a book that just came out. I was a 12-year-old boy, and that book was called Got a Gear by one of the greatest ventriloquists in our country at that time, Ray Allen. I got him to sign that a few years later. And I went away and I scanned through that book for a couple of months. And I knocked back on that door with a ventriloquist that won New Faces in 1987. And I said, I've learned everything from the book. And Jimmy Tamley then took me on as a roadie. I roadied for him for 10 years. And he showed me everything to be a ventriloquist on the road and to overcome lots of things, really driving through the night. And if you're being heckled by people in the audience, you get to deal with that as well. And being alone on the road for quite a long time and can be quite lonely. But he taught me so much, and I was speaking to him yesterday on WhatsApp. We're best friends and we're godfathers to each other's children. So ventriloquism brought me a lot of friends as well. I become obsessed with ventriloquism and I wanted to be the best. So I learned from the best. This guy came over in the 90s and he was from America, one of the greatest ventriloquists in the world. And he gave me loads of advice, which was amazing to meet the gent in London. He was working in London on a TV show and became a household name. And then I was completely hooked on ventriloquism. I started to do talent competitions at school, assemblies. That's me, age 14, winning a trophy in a social club full of adults. I also worked a lot of kids' parties around my town. I was born in Basingstoke in Hampshire, so that's where I grew up. And I just loved it. My parents and teachers could not believe what I was taking on because I was the shyest kid in school. They called me teacher's pet. I'd hide behind the teachers, and I was teacher's pet because they kept me in the cage at the back of the class. Sometimes there will be jokes. I then got on to work experience, and I said to my teachers, I want to be a ventriloquist. And they said, it's impossible for you to do ventriloquism as work experience. You need to go out there in the big wide world and do something quite serious. And I said, no, this is what I want to do. So they stuck with me, and I ended up preparing 57 shows in 3 weeks. I got on a bus and I planned a little route, and I'd done a tour around Basingstoke, and we'd done care homes and schools. I took my characters, and that was the ventriloquist that helped me along the way. And it was amazing to actually do my dream very early on. I was 15 by that time. And I was the most unusual work experience of 1990. So I got in my first booklet. There was no turning back. I knew this is what I want to do. And I went to college to learn stage experience and working behind the theatre. And that's what I wanted to do. So I got my first publicity picture. Again, age 14. The passion was ventriloquism. And I was writing to ventriloquists as I was growing up. So I wanted to get advice as I was going along. And all the ventriloquists around that time, especially this one, he was called Peter Bruff with Archie Andrews. And he had a ventriloquist dummy on the radio. He was successful for 10 years on the radio. And if you want to be a success these days, you've got to try and do it on the internet or on TV. But he was a ventriloquist on the radio. I won't say it again till I get the laugh, but he was a ventriloquist on the masks joke, but he did it on the radio. And he was a success in the 50s and the 60s and the highest paid entertainer in those 10 years on the BBC. But myself, I wanted to get on the road and be a cabaret act. I wanted to work holiday parks, and I started to get an act together. In 1993, I got a Michael Jackson puppet made up because I went to see him at Wembley, and I was amazed by Michael Jackson. And then some news came out that year that I got the puppet made up and I couldn't use it anymore. So I started to do some adult shows, and I was 17 years old. Got a show down at Barry Island. I was a blue coat when I was 17. And I got to get the Michael Jackson puppet out because it was topical. So I was kind of, to get in a character that I thought was going to be quite popular. And then that character wasn't as popular then. But I changed it. I started to write material around that age and started to really look after my own act and make sure that it worked. TV was the quickest way, really, to try and get known. I started to do a lot of talent competitions. I'd come first, second and third, and there was always singers or dancers in these talent shows. And I didn't mind being first, second or third because you'd still get prize money. It paid for the petrol and the jackets that I had. And obviously, I used the Michael Jackson puppet as well. I made up to about £10,000 in talent shows when I was on the road, sort of turning up. I'd hear all the singers say, oh no, Steve Hewlett's walked in, we might as well go home. And I was doing quite well in the 90s. So there you go. I was told technically I was a great ventriloquist, but I had to really get the material right. That's the hardest thing to overcome, is to write the best material. And that's when you learn by watching loads of different cabaret acts. And I was a blue coat in holiday parks, as I said, in '94. I was a resident entertainer to build that confidence. I was still really shy throughout my teens. I wanted to build the confidence. And so I would work up and down the country. And then at the end of one season I was doing in 1994, I saw an ad in the back of the Stage newspaper, and it said, "Be an usher at the London Palladium." So I took it and I went there. I worked in London for 9 months just to make contacts. And I started to get little jobs and talent shows along the way. But that theatre at the Palladium became a passion. I really enjoyed watching those shows. And it started to give me confidence. So I started to do some television shows. That's the wonderful Mr. Des O'Connor. I haven't got my hand up there. He's just walking past me at that point, but I've only got two hands. And so I performed 3 shows at the London Palladium in 1996, 3 charity shows. But the first time I got it, it was someone was advertising in the Stage to perform in their charity show, but you have to pay to be on it. And the Palladium was my dream. I just worked there for 9 months, but I wanted to be on that stage. So I took out my first ever loan, which was a big spiral into show business and debt. And this was it was a great moment for me. I took out a £2,000 loan. I was 20 years old, and he says you need £1,500 to be on the London Palladium. That's how much it meant to me to be on that stage and to actually perform in London at the Palladium. But now I was in debt. I had £2,000 loan to pay off. But the gentleman that booked me, he said, "You only need £500 now." He worked out, he actually sold a lot of tickets and he didn't need as much. So I gave the money to my mum and dad for rent, and that went well. I started to go to TV theatres and studios to meet people at stage doors, because I really wanted to get to know the business and getting to know how you get into there. So I started to do summer seasons. There's the wonderful Palladium. I met a few people at the stage doors. There's Ant and Dec. I met them way before I worked with them. That was Ant and Dec. I'm the one in the middle. I'm called And. Thanks, made that one up. And I got my first car, saved up for my first car. There's all my characters, little dummy in the back. I was driving. And that was a great season on the Isle of Wight, where I'd start to write my own jokes and get my act together. Then I got a summer season up in Blackpool. And it's very, very difficult, because in between the seasons, there was no work for entertainers, especially a ventriloquist. So I would work in factories in between just to pay the rent and try and get myself back on the road. But I wasn't professional. It was difficult to get onto that stage. And I started to meet great people I admired, like Keith Harris, Orville the Duck. You should Google him if you don't know Keith and Orville. He was one of my inspirations, and we became good friends when I worked in Blackpool. And I started to work venues like the Blackpool Tower and the Ballroom and the Circus. This would take on lots of summer seasons. And then I went on a TV talent show that year as well, with a guy called Sacha Baron Cohen. He ended up being Ali G and many other characters. And just working with him, moved on to other TV shows. This is me with Jonathan Ross in 1997. It was my biggest TV spot on that show. It went okay, but one agent didn't like a comment, because there was a guy called Gary Bushell, who was a TV critic, and he told me I was more wooden than my dummies. Now, I had one up on him because they were made out of foam, but I knew what he meant, and so did the public. And that agent I had a show for the following week cancelled the gig based on that TV spot, which went okay, but I was 22 and I just turned professional, and I was still not as confident as I wanted to be. So that puppet there later turned into a Simon Cowell puppet. It was recycled. So I'm into my recycle. That's good, isn't it? Just after that TV show, I tried to pack up my ideas again, because I needed my confidence back, because it was quite a big confidence knock doing that talent show on TV and not doing very well and losing a couple of gigs. I'd done a whole summer season. I turned professional. And this was the moment I won a talent competition a few months later. Amanda Holden was a judge, comedian Dave Lee. I won £400, a couple of trophies. And just after that, I had a phone call from a guy called Andy Peters, who was a TV producer, a TV presenter. and he gave me an opportunity to do a secret gig, which was the audience with the Spice Girls. So I was backstage, and Jerry ran up because she saw I had a Jerry Halliwell puppet, and she loved that. And I was 22 years old, still building up my reputation. So no one really knew about me, but the TV kind of does help. It gives you that little notch up the ladder. So every time I got a little knock of confidence, I always climb back up and something come out the woodwork, and it always seems to do that. I ended up doing lots of showcases in my early 20s, showcases where loads of entertainers turn up to a theatre or a club, and you do your show and all the agents are in the audience, like this, not laughing at you, or sometimes laughing at you. And it's nice because then they book you for like 100 dates in a holiday park, or you can get a job in a theatre. And that's how I ended up moving up the ladder, by doing all these showcases. The cruise ship industry was quite big for ventriloquists as well. So I got my first cruise. That's the wonderful Jimmy Cricket. And you're way too young to know who Jimmy Cricket is. And so I got a summer season in Benidorm in January. And for us, it was a summer season. It was January to March. I had 3 months out there. I didn't get my name in lights, but I had my name in chalk. And I was 23 years old. A couple of pictures up there. I work at midnight every night for an hour, 65 consecutive nights. And that gave me confidence, because there would be hen parties and stag parties turning up, heckling you. And I was grounded, really. I really learned a lot. I don't know who that guy is, but that's not me. And so, but I really did sort of learn, really, 3 months, because there was quite tough audiences. And I was the only ventriloquist on the strip in Benidorm. And there's a lot of strips in Benidorm as well, actually. I remember them. I got jobs in pantomimes. This is a big confidence booster, because you're working with loads of people from television, Page 3 Girls and Gladiators. I'll leave it there because it sounds funnier. In 2000, I moved to Eastbourne. And this is where I changed my life, because that's at the Royal Hippodrome Theatre around the corner. And in 2000, so I've been here for 22 years. And the reason I'm still here is that young lady in the orange top. That's me there. The first picture we ever had taken together. And we're facing opposite directions. But we're looking the other way the last 22 years, because we're now married and we've got 2 children. And she's an Eastbourne girl. Nina was a dancer in that show. And we got together and just had a wonderful season. That was called A Night to Remember. Tucker is a local comedian. He does your pantomimes at the Devonshire Park every year, if you go with your family. And we just had a really nice season. I was a special guest star because I was from Basingstoke. So to be on a professional theatre summer season was really, really a confidence boost as well. And I enjoyed that. We made friends there. Then I started to get into a lot of charity work. That's the wonderful Norman Wisdom. Norman Wisdom there, with my wife on the right. She was my fiance then. So I do a lot of work for the Variety Club of Great Britain, up and down the country, get invited to lots of things. Norman was a water rat, which is that's a rat emblem that he's wearing there. And Water Rats is a show business charity. And also there was Lauren Hardy, Charlie Chaplin were Water Rats. Lots of famous comedians, Les Dawson, Tommy Cooper, and the wonderful Mr. Norman Wisdom as well. So I do a lot of shows for those guys, the Water Rats and Variety Club. And me and Nina, who've just met, we moved down to Devon for a year to do this show. So we did a nice little summer season there. That was down in Torquay. This is in Torquay backstage. This is the morning that I asked Nina to marry me. This is in 2001. And Bruce Forsyth was filming a documentary in our theatre that night. I told him we just got engaged. He congratulated us. And he'd done a little show with us, excuse me, just before we started the show. He'd done a little section with us and a little dance. And I didn't dance. He's a great dancer. And then I started to support lots of acts as well. So as a ventriloquist, you get to support comedians and singers. I work with the Drifters, Joe Longthorne, great acts, Mick Miller. That's Johnny Casson there, very funny man. So my act was building and building. Nina come with me on cruise ships. We started to work all over the world. The cruise ship industry just got bigger and bigger and bigger. There's so many ventriloquists at sea, which is great because I'm here now working in the UK. And this is some of my characters that we would build up. Ongoing Tina. Nina would bring on my characters, and that's how I would get her in the act, and they pay for her flight. She would just bring on a character. She'd sing a duet with a character because she's a singer as well. And we went all over the world and just seeing places really together, enjoying our life. And then I was looking for new things to do, and lots of opportunities would come my way. I got to do a play as a ventriloquist. There was 3 ventriloquists in this play. That was in 2004 in Leeds at the City. We went back to a summer season at the Hippodrome 2004. Nina's in there somewhere. That's an old camera. Don't know if you remember cameras. I went back to pantomime. That was a touring pantomime where I was Aladdin and Wishy Washy all in one part. Working. So the variety started to sort of work for me. My name was starting to get a little bit of reputation, and I was building it up just by working my way up the ladder. I'm still at the bottom of the poster. And so you try and spend years working your way up and getting a bit more confident. And then I got to Las Vegas, which is the job I've always wanted, but I got married instead. So I had to go back there one day and get the money back, but we did spend too much. But so we got married in 2005. Little thing came along. This was the ventriloquist I told you about on the radio earlier today. That ventriloquist retired, and for 40 years this dummy was in a suitcase, and it was bought at an auction for £40,000. And there was like an audition for a ventriloquist to be the new voice of Archie and co-write a play called Re-Educating Archie. And so I got the job, and I co-wrote the play, and we done a show at the Underground Theatre in 2012. And that was quite a success. We've done 3 shows there, and he ended up being on the cover of a Van Morrison album a couple of years ago. So although he's a scary little figure, he's got so much history behind him, and I was very proud to be bringing him back to life. You know, because a lot of people would come and see the show. The Beatles knew who Archie Andrews was. That's Ringo Starr with him back then with Peter Brough. But when I started to do interviews on Radio 4, you get people like Bella Remberg from Russ Abbott shows, Ben Miller, I was on BBC with him, and Only Fools and Horses, this triggered down there, Roger Lloyd Pack. They'd all come to see me backstage at the theatre, not to meet me, of course, but to meet that little wooden-headed little fella down there. And it's amazing what these little characters can do, because if you build up a character, you get to know, they get to know you as an audience, they get to know your character more than they get to know you. I started to do summer seasons and Christmas seasons. This was up in Cromer in Norfolk, where I'm more popular up there than I am down here. Done seaside summer specials. Had to be crowning the Queen of Cromer over there. Me and my character Arthur Lager is in the middle on the top right, and this is me 2007. So the one and only Sir Ken Dodd, and he was just such a wonderful master of his art, Ken. He would always have ventriloquists for 60 to 70 years in his show. He'd always have a ventriloquist supporting him, but he'd done a little vent act himself as well, and he's in my book. Name down there. I went to Ken's funeral in Liverpool. It was about 2008, about four years ago. It was the most amazing spectacular. They really celebrated his life. It was a wonderful thing. But he was like my godfather of show business. Now, when I was a kid, I always wanted to do the Royal Variety performance, something I really wanted to try and get to do. And I hosted a show in Norfolk, and this show was called The Thursford Spectacular, and we had Prince William and Kate come to see the show. That's William there. Just behind him, you can see Kate's chin, and she's just behind him, and I'm shaking her hand just behind. So I got to do my little Royal Variety performance. but I was up in the middle of nowhere in Norfolk. When I was an entertainer and I was obviously in my early 20s, I always wanted to be a dad because I was always uncle or godfather to kids, and I never thought I was going to settle down. I was always on the road, living out of a suitcase, and all of my mum's upstairs in the attic was full of all my suitcases and everything, and all my memorabilia. So for many years, I thought I was never really going to get off the road and settle down. But when I met Nina in Eastbourne, we did settle down. And thanks to the DGH, the little one on the left, Lola, was born in 2011. So thank you if you're here. I don't know if she's not here. And so that was amazing. And we got another little one there called Larissa. So now we're busy parents, do the school drop off and pick up. It's nice to be home. My big break came when I got Britain's Got Talent. I had a phone call from the producers to come and do the show. And that was in 2013. Now, I'd always been on this same thing. It was the same roundabout of working cruise ships and holiday parks and pantomimes, literally for about 10, 15 years. It was a little bit boring. And although I loved my job, it was very lonely on the road. Trying to get that next step up the ladder is what I needed. And when this show came along, I turned it down for 7 years. But we just had a baby. It was 2013. And I thought, you know, our 1-year-old, we just kind of needed something else. So I thought a little step up the ladder would work. So I did BGT and met the and Sunita puppet to the show. Yeah, I've got really nice hits on YouTube, and that's when my career took off. I needed that big break. That big break came. Just after that, I did a show at the Devonshire Park Theatre. So a young lady saw me on the TV and she asked if I'd do a show for her. And I said, if you just wait to the final, I'll be able to sell a few more tickets for you. She was called Nicola Langlands, and she had a heart and lung transplant when she was 12, 13 years old. And she was the oldest surviving heart and lung transplant patient. She was running this thing called Look Beyond the Heart. It was lookbeyondtheheart.com. It's a charity that she hadn't registered. And so I put this show together with a lot of my friends at the Devonshire Park. She says she needs £5,000 to actually launch the charity. So we did that. We made £8,000. I gave it all to her, and she launched the charity. We lost her 3 months later, but she left us actually knowing that she was going to have the charity. And so we've helped hospitals out with certain things that they've needed, breathing apparatus. And so the charity sort of, it's stalled for a while because her sister took it over and she's had babies since. But I'm a patron of the lookbeyondtheheart.com, and we hope to do more. So if there is anyone out there that wants to get involved with us, or just if it's your department and you want us to get involved with you, I'll be happy to relaunch it again and try and get some help for you if you need something in your system. But that was an amazing night. It was great to have Nicola there. I started to become a producer of shows. I started to put lots of variety shows on and do my own tours. So a lot of them will be down here or up in Norfolk or in Brighton. And it's basically a big passion that I have. It's my passion that drives me forward. I always do get knocked down a bit. Finances is always very difficult, but we've got families to feed. We're all the same at the end of the day. And I love what I do. So if I can create smiles and raise funds for people, I do a lot of charities now. I love doing what I do. It's very important, really, to make sure people are smiling. You save them, and I try and keep them happy for a little bit longer. So it's nice. So we can, you know, sort of work together. That's nice. In 2019, I got to host the biggest variety spectacular in Norfolk, the Thursford Spectacular. It was my 4th time hosting it. And it was the most beautiful show. Literally, they have 120 people in the cast. Like there's 25 dancers, there's 50 musicians, 50 singers. And I'm always the host with my characters. And it was really nice to host that. It's a terrible job. And I started to get invited to certain events. I became a water rat myself. As I said, Lauren Hardy, Charlie Chaplin were water rats, Norman Wisdom I was invited in 2014 to get my emblem, which is on the side at home. I meant to put it on. So it's a little rat emblem, and it's a showbiz charity. We raise money for children's charities, lots of different charities. We help other entertainers as well that fall on hard times. And they helped a lot of water rats over the last 2 years because all of our work and venues shut down. This is one event that we had. There's so many different water rats there. There's Prince Michael of Kent is a water rat, and Prince Charles is a companion water rat, and His Royal Highness the late Prince Philip was as well. We have singers, dancers, actors, ventriloquists, comedians, so many different water rats. But that's what we do, and we raise funds. That's Lord Freddie Windsor. That was the day that he came in. Roy Hudd was the one that made me a water rat. He was a true comedy legend, Roy Hudd, variety radio legend, and he was the one that discovered me and brought me in.